And we are live on tonight's episode of the Freedom Series live stream. And today I'm joined by Aryeh Sternberg, all the way from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. How are you doing today, mate?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Mate, doing excellent. And I'm super excited because you're a bit of a futurist when it comes to digital marketing and technology in that space. And so I'm pretty excited to not only hear what you've got to share, but the audience's questions as well. So if you're joining us for any of the platforms we're streaming live on right now, welcome. So grateful to have you here. Rafi from my team is going to be scrolling through the comments and feeding through your questions to us here so we can get them answered. So if you've got any questions for myself or for Aryeh throughout this, please feel free to jump in and let us know. Also hit the like button, let us know that you are watching as well. So mate, futurist when it comes to marketing and technology. What does that even mean?
Well, there's been so much disruption, and I think it's a word that some would say is overused, but if anything, it's underused. You look at the last 6 weeks, last 6 months, even the last 6 years, what we've seen and experienced in the world. It doesn't matter where you are or where you're from, you will have been disrupted. The word unprecedented has been used more times in the last few months than any time, in our lives. And there's a reason for that. It's not just because of, what's happened with COVID-19 and even, the other disruptions and eruptions. Technology has forced us to change how we engage in the world. And, unless you're 3 years old, you will have experienced some form of a paradigm shift in how you engage in the world. This device, there we go. It is the window to pretty much everything that we do, and it controls us. And so from a marketing perspective, we can either allow that feeling of loss of control, or we can allow that opportunity to sort of engage and just accept the fact that people don't want to give up what they have. And we have more and more, we have less and less. And part of what we have is our privacy. And when that gets invaded every 7 seconds, that invasion has to be scripted. We've got to be smart about it. So the futurist part is really just beginning to open the eyes and saying, what are all those different ways that we can potentially, engage and build that relationship with a consumer? And where does the value sit? How do we begin listening to what's going on around us?
And out of curiosity, those that are watching this now, whether it be live or on the replay, I'd love you to comment below, like, are you watching this from a phone or from a laptop or from a tablet, just as a curiosity as well?
I'm on a laptop right now.
On a laptop, yeah, me too. And it's interesting you say that, because I notice for me, I can either be very disciplined in terms of like not looking at my phone at all and just living life. But then I also notice there's other times where like I'm addicted to like pick it up. And I say addicted because it's not even like it dings or buzzes or goes off. It's like I pick it up and 1 minute I click into Messenger or I click into email and I click into kind of see what's updated or what's come through. I know too that over time they say that our attention span has gotten shorter. And I wonder whether it's our attention span as human evolution has progressed, or whether it's the fact that we're living in a much busier marketplace than we ever have before.
So I've heard this said a few different times, but I think that probably the most notable, or the one that comes to mind most recently, is from Joe Rogan. And on the Joe Rogan podcast, he was talking about how much time we have and attention we have to give to something or someone. And what social media, for the most part, has done, and even email and even just SMS, every time there's that progressive requirement for our attention to be on something, or the possibility that we're missing out, that FOMO feeling, it comes up. And it started with, probably in our lifetime, when you get home and there's a message on your machine. Prior to mobile phones, prior to even email on the computer, IRC chat, whatever, you get home, there's a message on the phone, you missed a call. And before that existed, it was either you were there or you weren't, and people knew, and everyone agreed and had this unspoken sort of understanding. When that communication happens, it's not there. Now, someone pings you on Instagram, do you answer? On Facebook, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram. Like, how many options do you have? WeChat. It depends where you are in the world and what each channel means to you. Like, I've got email and Slack coming in.
Yeah.
How fast do I have to respond to an email, and how fast do I have to respond to certain Slack? It's kind of like there's no rules or bylaws, but there's a requirement to respond.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned that. I remember getting home from school and we had a phone that had like the cord attached to the headset to the wall unit. And we bought like an extension so we could like walk far enough away to get some privacy around the corner. But I remember getting home from school and like having to like sign in of who was going to use the phone when with my brothers, because I'd be on the phone for hours talking to girls from school. And it just said, it was like this unspoken rule of like, you're going to be home and I'll ring and you'll be there. Whereas nowadays it's like we're more mobile than ever before. And we have that device that we have that we're walking around with that has the ability to communicate with someone instantaneously, which for business owners is a huge advantage. And for a marketer is a huge advantage. But although I believe there's never been an easier time to grow a business than right now, I also believe there's never been a harder time to grow a business than right now. This is the contradiction that we constantly live in as human beings, because as well as, and as easy it is to communicate with anyone everywhere at this, whenever you like, you're also competing against everyone else that has the same ability as well. Yeah. So how can we start to use the latest in marketing technologies and so forth to, I guess, break through such a crowded marketplace that's there right now? Attention spans we spoke about a lot smaller. We're competing with 10, 20, 30 different apps. Like, how can we use technology to start breaking through?
So it's a great question. And it's interesting because it kind of comes back to kind of asking the question. This is something, my parents are clinical therapists, so they brought me up asking these questions. And so it's kind of asking, what are you doing by doing that? And that is, as a business owner or as a person that's trying to get the attention of someone, I'm competing with so many other people that are trying to get your attention. So if I'm going to get your attention, what is it that I'm trying to do to get you to listen to me? And why am I important? Yeah. What is it I have to say? And so it starts off with what? Starts off with when, where, how, and the starting place and the easiest place to start is where kind of digital marketing began, and that's in the search engine space. Mm-hmm. Free tools are out there. There are paid tools as well, but something as simple as Google Trends will let you begin to see and start nitpicking down to say, where are the things happening? Let me begin understanding, is there a trend around something that I think is important? Or do I flip it around and sit on the side of who I think my consumer is and ask a question, do they even care what I'm talking about? And if it's not what I think they care about, how do I change what I'm talking about to actually reflect what is it that they want?
Mm. Yeah, it's funny. We had a live stream a few hours ago, actually, with Michael McNish, who's one of our coaches here at the Game Changers. And he's phenomenal when it comes to marketing, and more specifically, the psychological aspect of marketing, understanding the drivers, understanding how to identify a niche and the right offer. Like, yes, you can go and build funnels and that sort of thing, but I think you'd agree 80% of this that we're talking about is understanding your core customer inside and out, understanding them almost better than you understand yourself in many ways, asking questions of them that you probably haven't even thought to ask of yourself, because that's how you can communicate to them in seconds, on a news feed, through an image, through a headline, to essentially earn their attention.
Yeah. How much time do you have in the day outside of, you're spending a lot of time putting together the work that you're doing? How much time do you have for yourself?
Yeah.
And then, flip that around and ask the question of your, as you said, that target customer. So we can either go out there and try to be explicitly specific on who that target customer is, or we can begin using tools that Facebook and Google offer us to actually begin testing the water, putting something out there, sampling, getting some feedback, and refining it. There's no question that, depending on where in the business growth cycle, a startup or, what do they call this, stretch up, you've got to be thinking about how much am I willing to spend and what is the value that I can measure that's going to give me that return.
Mm.
I mean, we talk about ROI, but it's not just about ROI, right? It's like a click is a click is a click. Someone
Mm.
clicks on something, but how much is that click actually worth? And is that what I should be counting?
Yeah.
Like one of the challenges is people go in and measure certain things because that's what they're exposed to. But that's not actually what's valuable.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, love that. And a bunch of people coming through and commenting that they're watching this. Most people actually are watching this from the phone, which is interesting. It's funny you say that, like something I touch on in my book, like we don't actually go too deep on marketing. So I've written this book that's released on the 3rd of August this year called The Path to Freedom. And we don't touch on marketing too much. We do talk about KPIs and understanding what levers do what in your business. And I feel that there's a big gap there that a lot of business owners have, is that they're investing all this time and even money and talent into certain areas and wondering why their business is just not growing as fast as it should, or wondering why they've hit a plateau. And
Yeah.
often it's because they're unclear, like they're measuring KPIs for the sake of KPIs, or they're measuring certain things, not understanding what levers to pull to get the growth. You know, for one business, it might be important to measure clicks, whereas for another business, it might be worth measuring cost of acquisition. And each business have these different things. I think all businesses should really be measuring cost of acquisition, but from a lot of people we've spoken to, they don't know what that is. They don't know what it costs to acquire a client. Like, where do you see this going? Like, if we're where we are now in 2020, and we're saying the attention span of humans is like, what, 7 seconds or something, I think you touched on before, right, compared to what it was. I've also seen some statistics that shows that back years ago, it was like 3 points of contact to a sale, whereas now it's like 36, 37, 38, 39 points of contact we're supposed to have with a prospect before they're in a position where they trust you enough to make a sale. Where do you think we're going to be in 2030 or 2040 based on the current trajectory and our relationship with marketing and with what we're seeing in technology?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we can already see the tendrils of, you know, the string. If you start pulling, it'll unravel what we can do. I would argue that in the last 2 or 3 years, we've begun moving ahead and advancing again. But there was a period of about 5, 6, maybe even 10 years where there really wasn't much beyond what we see: paid search, paid social, display ads in the internet. Right now, we're beginning to see much more happening in the audio space.
Yeah.
You know, the number of homes that actually have some kind of a smart speaker where you're either talking to it and making some kind of a request, or just on your phone, say, hey, Google, you know, set an alarm for tomorrow. And I'm not talking to you right now. But, you know, these are the sorts of areas where if
it's Google.
Yeah, it's Google. If you're listening, as
Yeah.
you know, this is the Google Home Mini over in the corner. But
Yeah.
the, you know, voice, touch, whether it's augmented or virtual reality, the mixed reality, these are areas where information will become more and more available for us to manipulate as marketers, but also to pull information from. So if I put a video in front of you and you watch that video, you get to see the content. But what I get to see on my side is I'm seeing how long did you watch it? At what point did you drop out? What was happening in the video when you dropped out? What was the audio track? What specific word was being said, or what content was being said that lost your attention? And then can start analyzing contents and the content of those contents. How many comments are there? What is the sentiment of those comments? Where is it where a comment is getting liked and shared? And then, you know, the diaspora of that content, where is it going? I'd started it on Twitter, but then it shows up somewhere on LinkedIn. It's over here being retweeted in some random blog by somebody halfway around the world. Why? And that's where we start sort of going in. And it's kind of like the channels where that content and that engagement can come out are going to expand and change. But what we measure, as you said, those KPIs, the metrics that drive the KPIs, those aren't going to change. And it's understanding what that metric is. You know, how long is a piece of string? Well, it's as long as it needs to be able to tie your shoe or whatever you're trying to do with it. And that's where we have to ask the critical question.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to expand on that as well from a different perspective. And if you're watching live, welcome. So glad you're here. Please hit the like button. Let us know you're there. My team's in the comments. So ask any questions you got. They'll get fed through. I've got a couple of comments coming through here. One from Tim from Melbourne, one from Georgie, which we're going to touch on just in a second. Before we do though, and I lose my train of thought, COVID-19 was interesting times because there's a lot of perceived experts that were like talking about blow your business up and blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of other perceived experts are like, hey, we have no idea what's going on and not able to leading their tribes. I put out a video partway through saying, hey, like I've never been through a pandemic, but here's how you can grow through these times. And there was some fundamental marketing principles and KPIs to measure, because regardless of whether there's a pandemic or there's a global financial crisis, people are still spending money, right? Now their spending patterns and their spending behaviors change. And in many ways during COVID, more people were on Instagram and Facebook and social channels, more people, the consumption of videos went way up, right? So there's more eyeballs on your stuff. What changed though is their buying patterns and behaviors and what they were choosing to buy and spend money on based on the outside economic shifts and changes that were happening. And we saw that clients that pivoted or positioned their messaging differently and met the prospects where they're at in their head with their own thoughts and their own fears and their own desires and everything else were the ones that continue to succeed and grow through the times. The ones that were stuck on their messaging were the ones that got stuck in business. And sorry. And I see based on what you shared that 2030, 2040, the platforms very much might change, right? But the fundamental principles of marketing won't. If you're able to construct an offer, to speak to a target audience, regardless of whether the next platform's TikTok or LinkedIn or Instagram or something else that hasn't even been invented yet, it's irrelevant because you know how to create the fundamentals that haven't changed for 100 plus years. That's my perspective anyway.
There's and it's amazing, you know, wisdom comes from many different places, and sometimes you just have to be willing to be open to it coming in. And this is something that's been with me since I was in third grade. And I've seen it now in the streets. I'm actually in a correction. I'm actually in Sydney. My friends in Melbourne will.
I actually thought you were in Venice Beach, California.
You recognize it. Nice. Yeah. No, but a very simple 3 words: stop, look, and listen. Listen. And we're rushing, and we're just half the time we're talking, and we're not even listening. But if you stop and look and listen, and just give the time to see what's happening around you, the world shifts. It's shifted dramatically. And if you look at how people are spending online, they're still buying. You know, like you said, the buying behavior has changed. Certainly, people are more cautious, but also, if you put the same products in front of the same customers, and they're not responding, it's up to you to be paying attention and ask the question, well, why? What's changed? You know, what do I need to change in terms of my messaging, in terms of how I'm showing it to them? You know, it's about understanding who they are and what affects them. Yeah.
And that's the importance of measuring. I feel like the basic 5 KPIs I speak about in my book, and we go deeper, but, you know, leads, quantity of leads, number of leads, conversion rate of those leads to sales, number of sales, average sale, and lifetime value of those. They're the 5, I think, regardless, 5 basic needs, because if you're measuring them, let's say pre-COVID, right? It's an example that we can all relate to. We've all been through it, we're all going through it. Going through that path, you see, oh shit, my conversion rate's changing. Focus on that. What's the conversations we're having? What do we need to be having? Or my lead quantity's dropped, or my average sales dropped. It gives you a very, very quick viewpoint of what you need to focus on to fix to ensure you keep meeting KPIs and you keep in a growth phase within your business. Let's come back to that. Well, let's go over here to Tim from Melbourne. Tim says, it sounds like you're a good mentor. Now, the issue is everyone who's good with funnels or Facebook or viral on Instagram is an instant expert marketer. How do you handle the newer ones who want to learn from you now? And how do you handle those who stick around just to absorb the experience?
We're talking the marketers who are sticking around to absorb the experience, or the customers, do you think?
I'm not too sure. It's the first question, how do you handle the newer ones who want to just learn from you? Like, how do you handle people wanting to learn from you, I guess is the first question.
So and this goes back to the beginning where we talked about disruption. And when you look at the world of ad tech and martech, right? This advertising technology, marketing technology, the big players who have a lot of money to invest, they can buy a large technology stack that is meant to fit well together, and then spend the amount of money it takes to actually get companies like ours to actually service them and make those platforms work. And when they work really well, it's like a Ferrari. It hums and it goes the way it's supposed to. But the challenge is, if you're going to go and start fresh, you don't have $1.5 million to invest in the entire Adobe stack, right? Which even when you invest money in Adobe stack, if you don't know how to make it work, it's not going to work for you. It's incredible technology, but it's also, you know, finely nuanced to do certain things. Salesforce, people go back to Salesforce because it works. But if you don't have the money to invest in the entire Salesforce stack, let alone just Salesforce Marketing Cloud, to run your CRM or doing marketing automation, like, you need to take a step back and say, okay, what am I trying to achieve? If I'm new, I'm not going to have 5 million people to talk to. I'm going to have 500. So go look at MailChimp. Go watch YouTube. There's plenty of videos. Talk to Barry. There are places to look for the fundamentals of how to make it work. And those 5 KPIs you mentioned, if you start with an understanding and saying, what does lifetime customer value mean to me? And work backwards from there and say, okay, a new person who's never seen my product before or service, what would they look like to me as a long-term valuable customer who's out there sharing my product with someone else? Where do they sit? What clothing do they wear? What is their personality online? And how do I begin defining that? And then work backwards from there. And then that's where your KPIs come from. And it's applied to any platform.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's important to know, nicely put, it's important to know what stage of business you're at, and therefore where you should be focusing your time, where you should be focusing your resources, and ensuring that you know, I've met business owners that are like, oh, like, we're doing 100 grand a year, but we're going to go and invest in the full Salesforce suite because we'll grow into it. Now, although that may be true, it's not the smartest advice, and it's certainly not the way that I'd be running a business based on the experience that I've had so far. So nicely put. Technical question from Georgie Brook. Hey, Georgie, welcome to the live stream. Great to have you here, dude. And if anyone else watching has got any questions, please comment below, and Rafi from my team will feed them through so we can get your questions answered for you immediately tonight. So Georgie's calling in from New South Wales as well. With so many touch points required to convert a prospect these days, how important is multi-point attribution, and why has capability not reached need yet?
Oh, so that's a tricky question, and I kind of chuckle because it's the same. I would have the same sort of chuckle in response when someone says, "It seems like personalization and, you know, dynamic messaging and giving the right person the right message at the right time is something everyone talks about. Why isn't it done more?" And the reason why is because it's technically very challenging. Depending on the size of the business, and if that business is engaging external parties like agencies like mine to run the media for them, then there's probably another business that's running the creative, and there's another business that's running social media, and someone else running the PR, and someone else running the search marketing, and someone else might be doing the paid search and the organic search. All of those different parties don't necessarily talk friendly to each other. Yeah. Poor grammar. And then they're likely using different technology stacks that, instead of doing like that, they're kind of doing like that. Yeah. And so unless you can get a complete transparent visibility across everything, and that's what the likes of an entire Adobe stack does, you're not going to be able to count everything at the same time. So that, you know, multi-touch attribution becomes more of, okay, well, what can we count, and where can we begin seeing those trends and activity that can at least give us something to begin looking at. That's why first touch or last touch or time decay, they're built in because they can give you at least a trend. That if I break it into like 3 different audience groups, let's say like young people, middle-aged people, old people, and watch how are they converting. What is the time between the first time they see my advertisement and when they convert? either as an acquisition or sales or sale, and look for trends in those larger groups, you're going to get stuck. You're looking at the bark on the tree instead of looking at the forest.
Mm.
I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to be not too.
Yeah, makes sense to me. If anyone needs some clarification, please jump in the chat and let us know. Welcome to the show. I guess this is where like smaller companies have the opportunity to create their own client journey. Now, although platforms, let's say like HubSpot is fantastic because you can connect it with your website, your different channels, and you can start to track the full client journey and start to, I guess, refine your messaging at each of those touch points. You know, Facebook makes it super easy to do retargeting. And you've got, you know, ManyChat functionality on bots. You've got email sequences. You've got the ability to reach out and call people. It's like if you can create a good lead magnet to get an opt-in, you can kind of almost force those 36 touch points through the way that you then take them through your process without the need for you to have an SEO expert on board and a PR expert on board and all these other different companies working, like you said, succinctly with one another, because you've kind of developed a journey knowing the fact that you need some time to win them over, to win their trust and to win their hard-earned dollars, essentially.
Yeah. You mentioned something before that I think is also important to call on, and that is that you set KPIs, and it's important to understand what is a KPI look like to me. And if you are looking at the funnel, you've got different measurement that shows you success at different stages of the funnel, but then you've also just got the efficiencies. And, you know, if you begin, like you mentioned on Facebook, okay, what is my cost to get one person to convert from Facebook versus someone that I'm, you know, using AdWords on? And what is the value of that person pre-conversion and post-conversion? And it's kind of like, if you're already looking and feeling like it's too complex, then some of the complexity and simplify. That's one thing that I would say, because, you know, as you mentioned, we're live streaming on, you know, at least 3 platforms, if not more. You didn't start there. You don't just be like, I'm gonna get this one, and get everything set up. It's like, well, how many hands do you have? How many hours are there in the day? If you can't do everything at once, then you gotta like pick and choose and stay simple. And then once you kind of master that and you feel like you're making progress, expand. Because the number of channels are never going to get smaller. That's just not going to happen.
It's so beautifully put, and it's something that I do touch on a lot, like in the book. And I'm glad that you've brought that up and shared that. And it ties back into what I said before around understanding where your business is at. Therefore, what you need to put in, like the amount of entrepreneurs that I've met that it's like, oh, like, you know, let's take marketing example. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, well, we're writing blog posts and we're doing stuff on Instagram and Facebook, and then we've got YouTube over here, and they're doing like 10 different things, but they're doing them like at 10% efficiency or productive, or like even a completion rate, because they think that it's about more, not less. Whereas, you know, and I was very much there 18 years ago when I started my first business, not so much marketing, we never advertised, but in other areas of the business, I was wearing many hats and doing many things at once, until I started to realize that I've got so many units of time a week. Let's say I've got 10 units of time a week, right? For argument's sake. It's like I could do 10 things and do 1 unit of time in each. So therefore, each 10 things are moving forwards 1 unit of time each a week. Or I could do one thing and move that one thing forwards 10 units. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not good at multitasking. Many people say they are, but they're actually not. Like it's a bullshit illusion, especially the masculine, the man, terrible multitasking. Women are actually better at multitasking than us men. It's part of who they are, not being sexist, but it's part of our genetic makeup. But it's like, I found that moving one thing forward 10 steps, I'm more productive. It gets done a shitload better than moving multiple things forwards. You get it done quicker, so therefore you can move on to do more things. And I actually find I can get those 10 things done in a far better, more successful and faster pace, doing one at a time rather than trying to push all 10 or 5 ahead at the same time. And I think that's a really important point that you shared, is that like find one thing that works. Like first of all, know where you're at, know where you want to go, find one thing that works and double down on that thing until you can build capacity in your team, in your cash flow and your resources to then start to replicate another stream or another channel or another message or another product or another market. but get one right working first, systemize it, delegate it out to other staff members, hire people to run it, and then you've earned the right to start focusing on other areas.
Absolutely. There's, you'd mentioned before just about, you know, like how do you get into it? How do you find just ways, you know, different ways to find information? There's one thing that came to mind was there's a platform called Critio, and Critio, for those who don't know, is a performance marketing platform. It's largely used by retail and e-commerce, and it provides remarketing at a globally massive rate. On their website, and the Critio website, there's a free tool that lets you look at different retail vertical areas like home and garden, kitchen, and then it breaks it down to different products. It's a free tool, but what's very interesting, you look at the trends, you look at the last 6 months, and you see the sort of normal trend, and then somewhere around February or March, the world changed. And we talked about COVID changing. The consumption of digital content has exploded, but the amount of money being invested by advertisers has imploded. So if you are a new business, there are places to look where there's suddenly a lot cheaper media to find and opportunities where there are sudden gaps. Now, I'm American, if you can't tell by my voice, my accent, and I absolutely support all the lives that matter, and Black Lives Matter and everything. There are companies that have stopped advertising on Facebook. And so if you're a small business, I'm not saying to go take advantage of that, but these sorts of things are happening more and more. And in the turmoil of the world, there are lots of opportunities that are being uncovered. And by no means don't take advantage of that, but think about the fact that people are now looking in different directions. In your customer base, there are new customer pods that are emerging every single day. And that's that stop, look, and listen. And just read the news, go YouTube, see what's trending in a certain area. Information is there, you just have to look for it.
Yeah, I love that. What's the website? Do you know the website by heart?
I think just critio.com, and then yeah, I can share it after.
That's fine. I'll get one of the team. If you guys can watching this, just pull the link up in the chat for anyone viewing. Would be great. I think you're right too. The way I always put it is this: is like there's always going to be something going on in the world, and this is why I stopped watching news. God, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, I stopped watching news. I stopped reading the newspaper. I figured that like the important stuff would find me. And I would like to think that I'm fairly well educated as well. Like, but by choice, I choose to educate myself rather than allowing media outlets to educate me on what they perceive is important and the spin that they choose to put on it. That's a whole nother conversation. But the way that I see it is it's an inner game thing, or what we talk about inner game thing or mindset is that like both exist all the time. There's always going to be aspects of chaos and adversity and challenge in life. And there's always going to be aspects of order and opportunity and abundance. And we could choose to live our life like looking at one and suppressing the other, right? Whichever way, like you're way too pessimistic. So it's like, you know, you see all the negative stuff or all the perceived negative stuff more than you see the positive stuff, or you're way too optimistic. And I was way too optimistic for a long time. The last few years, I've chosen to go, okay, cool, this exists, and I can have compassion and empathy for this, and I can have compassion and empathy for this, and no one's any right or wronger than each other. But now, how do I choose to show up in the middle, knowing that both exist? What decisions am I going to make for me and to fulfill the vision that I'm here to have and to fulfill for my team and for my clients and all that, knowing all of this? You know, like through what we've just been through, people were looking for strong leaders. People were looking for people that could stand up and lead and not necessarily preach this or preach that, but show up certain in what they're about and certain on moving towards a direction. And I saw a lot of people that didn't show up that way. I saw a lot of people that, because of their own uncertainty, showed up way too much on one side or the other, and people see through that. We had a question here from Yuki from Sydney. They always say that AdWords is going under sometimes too, but it's still around. Any thoughts on this?
Sorry. Google and AdWords and the search marketing business, there's such a huge service that search provides us,
Yeah.
and Google and AdWords. Certainly, it is powered by advertising, but the search engine optimization and just sort of the whole undercarriage of what is supporting the internet is powered by search.
Yeah.
It may change form, and it may be that Google gets slapped with some pretty heavy fines, and they might even get their company broken up. But AdWords and the Google search engine, most likely, unless something crazy happens, won't be going anywhere anytime soon. How we search and how we engage may change.
Yeah. Like you just have a conversation and the ads pop up on your phone without even typing anything. That's already happening.
And no matter who wants to claim that people are doing that or not, there are enough examples out there that is happening. But I no longer search by typing a few keywords. I'll actually type a question in because I know that Google's smart enough to parse my question, read that sentence using natural language processing, and analyze what is it that I'm really asking? What is it that I'm looking for? And part of that is because so many people are asking questions with voice, saying, hey Google, what time is it in Turkey right now? but it's just, we change the way that we engage in the world, and that's where the changes will happen. But those platforms of infrastructure, it's not going to change. Facebook, love it or hate it, it's going to be around for a while. They're going to shift and change and dodge. But just watch Facebook Horizons, their little VR social world. It's coming, and that will be, another conversation of the time. But yeah.
In many ways, it's become more humanistic because the moment that you shared that asking a question, it's like I just relate it back to mindset and goal setting. It's like the more specific we can set our goals, the more likely we are to achieve them. It's like, putting a goal like, I want to be rich one day. Like what does rich mean? Rich according to who? Rich in what? Like rich in health, rich in assets, rich in cash, as opposed to, hey, like I would like to, by the 20th of December, 2022, I'd like to have $10 million in owned assets, returning me a positive income of X, Y, Z. Like the more specific we can be with our goal setting, and the more that we allow our reticular activating system, to consciously and unconsciously search out things that support our goals. Search is becoming more humanistic in that respect, that it's starting to emanate more like we think as human beings.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've been enjoying this conversation, hit the like button, let us know. And one thing for you is that I think that there's never been a better time than right now to be growing our own business. And I honestly believe that entrepreneurs are the future of our world and our economy, and have the biggest opportunity to change lives, more so than I think the governments that are trying to run the countries. But that being said, I think a lot of people, we're not brought up knowing how to grow a business. We're not brought up with that education. And it's certainly not something taught at school or at college. And yet, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there teaching people how to grow businesses that haven't actually grown them before, or haven't actually grown them multiple times, or haven't grown them in such a way they can educate others. We've been in this game for me, like 9 years now. I think I've coached, I've spent more than 15,000 hours coaching people one-on-one. Grown many companies of my own and other companies as well. And, over the last 4 months, I've put 18 years of my business experience into one book, which is The Path to Freedom, the 9 steps to create a profitable business that can work without you. Although we don't dive deeply into things like marketing and sales, we do dive into the fundamentals that need to be in place to grow a business that can provide you with freedom from financial struggle, freedom from having your time sucked in business, and freedom from not feeling fulfilled in your job. So if you'd like to copy, we'll release a link, I think, next Sunday with early bird specials and a bunch of bonuses. I love your support to get this out to more people. It's certainly a book you should buy for your employees as well, because let's be honest, we can't grow a business on our own. And the more that they can get educated with these principles, the more they can help you as the founder. And equally too, like if you'd like to get in contact with Arya, like how can they find you online?
LinkedIn is pretty easy. Just my first name and last name, Arya Sternberg. If you like random pictures of my cats or the food that I like to eat or plants. REA Aussie on Instagram is another area. And then that's probably the easiest way.
Leave a comment below. We'll put a link below with the way to find you as well, or you can reach out to thegamechangers.com.au and we'll certainly connect you. Mate, I'd like to ask all of our guests this question, Arya, is that if you are having a conversation with a 10-year-old version of you right now, knowing everything you know and being through everything you've been through, what advice would you give him?
I think I would say just keep your eyes open and be willing to live openly. Be willing, understand that there are going to be bumps in the road. There are going to be things that don't make sense when they happen. And as a good friend of mine from my days in Vietnam told me, everything happens for a reason, and it may not make sense, and it may not be a reason that you're happy about. But the world around us is there, and sometimes, we just have to roll with it. But look, stop, look, and listen, and just pay attention, because suddenly you'll be 45 and like, how'd that happen? No hair.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for your time and everything you've shared. And also too, thank you so much for everyone who's joined us from around the world to tune in either live or you're watching this on a replay some other time than right now. Appreciate you and appreciate you spending some of your time to check this out. If you want to get in touch with me or my team, thegamechangers.com.au. Otherwise, we'll put links in there for both myself and Arya as well. Mate, appreciate you. Thank you so much. And look forward to seeing everyone on the next one sometime soon.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Game Changers podcast. There's a couple of things I'd love you to do to help us and help yourself to spread the message further. Make sure that you like the Game Changers on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. Please subscribe by clicking the link below to ensure that you keep up to date with the weekly episodes we share here at the Game Changers podcast with amazing entrepreneurs and business owners around the world. And of course, if you're in a position where you may be overwhelmed with business or looking for a way to grow faster, more effectively, and you realize that the key to success is being surrounded by amazing people who have been there and done that before, I'd like to invite you to apply to have a game plan session one-on-one with one of my team here at the Game Changers. There's no cost if you get through. All that we ask is that you are doing a minimum of $250,000 per year to really be able to utilize the strategies and the tactics and the mindset shifts that we share with you, that you're coachable, that you're a decent person, and you're willing to take on board some advice. If not, that's totally cool. But I know for me, I wouldn't be where I am right now without the support of so many mentors and coaches and resources along the way. And I'd like to pay that forward and give back to you the opportunity to work with us one-on-one for free to put together a customized game plan. And the reason we're doing this is a couple of things. Number one is that sometimes it's just the smallest thing that can make the biggest difference. And I think that entrepreneurs and business owners have the opportunity to change the world. And if we can maybe help you to make the smallest shift to change your life and your world, you're changing ours in return. The second thing is that we are always looking for amazing clients to work with and to welcome into and invite into the Game Changers community. And so if at the end of the call, you do feel that there's a huge amount of value there, that we feel that there's a great values fit there, we can have a conversation about working together. But this game plan call, there's absolutely no obligations to work with whatsoever. Allow us to help you with the years and years and years of knowledge that we have in growing and scaling great companies. And I think that business owners are the future of the world. If there's a way that we can help you to create a better business, more profit, more fulfillment, more fun, I would love the opportunity to do that now. So click the link below, book your game plan session, make sure you follow us on social and start to date with the latest episodes of the Game Changers podcast. My name's Barry William Magadity. Thank you so much for your support and look forward to seeing the next one. Bye for now.